After Hour Stories. Tonight's story, The Elevator Between Floors. The elevator doors are halfway closed when a man's hand appears between them. They draw apart again with a patient chime. Inside the car, the last 3 cardboard boxes are stacked on a borrowed luggage cart. A dying houseplant is making a determined escape from your free arm, and your keys are buried in whichever pocket you cannot reach. You have lived in the country for 6 days. In this city for 4, and in apartment 912 for approximately 11 exhausting hours. He steps inside carrying coffee and wearing a dark wool coat that fits in too precisely to be accidental. He is tall enough that the elevator seems to contract around him, broad through the shoulders and lean at the waist beneath the coat's clean lines. His dark hair is neatly kept, his jaw shadowed by the end of the day, and his face would look severe if not for the quiet attention in his eyes. For all the space he could take, he settles beside the control panel as though careful not to crowd you. He looks far too composed for 7:30 in the evening. His eyes move from the boxes to the plant leaning dangerously toward the floor. 9, he asks. You glance at him. He nods toward the shipping label beside your elbow. Your new address is printed across it in letters large enough to be seen from space. Right, you say. 9. 9 lights beneath his fingertip. Then 17. The elevator begins to climb. At the time, the 8 floors between your doors feel like nothing at all. On the 5th floor, the smallest box slips. He catches it easily against his chest without spilling his coffee. The movement pulls the wool taut across his shoulders. Apparently, the coat's shape is not entirely the work of its tailor. Thank you, say. Of course. He reads the writing on its side. Kitchen. Extremely fragile. 3 exclamation marks. My mother packed that one, you tell him. Then I understand the urgency, he says. There is the faintest half smile at the corner of his mouth. When the doors open on 9, he sets the box back on the cart and keeps one hand against it until the wheels are across the threshold. Good luck with the kitchen, he says. You steer the cart into the hallway. Good luck with 17, you call back. The reply makes no sense, but the doors are already closing. For 1 second, just before they meet, you see that half smile again. Your new apartment is still full of boxes. The radiator knocks at night. The nearest grocery store carries 6 kinds of milk you have never seen and none of the one you want. But the next morning at 7:38, the elevator opens on the 9th floor. He is already inside, riding down from 17. The second time, he holds up his coffee in greeting. How did the kitchen survive, he asks. You step beside him. 2 broken glasses. 1 argument with a shelf. Who won? He asks. The shelf believes it did, you say. The lobby button is already glowing beneath his hand. On the 3rd morning, you learn his name because the building manager has given you one of his envelopes by mistake. Adrian Bale, you read, holding it out. 1704. And you are 912, he says. You remember apartment numbers, you ask. Only the ones attached to dangerous plants, he says. You tell him your name. He repeats it once, correctly, without shortening it or asking whether he can call you something easier. He gives it back to you unchanged. For the rest of the ride, you do not feel quite so newly translated. By the end of the 2nd week, the elevator has become a place with rules. You begin to recognize his presence before you look up. Coffee, cold air, and the subtle shift in space when his broad frame turns to make room for you. Adrian never crowds you. The elevator feels smaller anyway. At 7:38, the car comes down from 17. When it reaches 9, Adrian holds the doors until you are inside. The lobby button is already lit. On the occasional evening when you arrive home together, he presses 9 for you and leaves 17 dark. When the doors open on your floor, you press 17 before stepping out. And for the 9th-floor descent between your floor and the lobby, neither of you looks at a phone. Over the next 6 weeks, 9 floors at a time is enough to collect fragments. One morning, Adrian boards with a gym bag and damp hair, his coat hooked over one finger. Without the wool to lend him structure, the charcoal shirt he wears makes 2 things clear. He trains before dawn, and his tailor has been receiving too much credit. You study the floor display until your expression can be trusted. He designs lighting for old buildings. Not lamps, he explains, but the path a person's eyes follow when they enter a room after dark. So you decide what strangers notice first, you ask. Usually, he says. Then I go home to 2 bare bulbs and avoid making the same decision for myself. You look up at the elevator's harsh ceiling panel. Adrian has taken the side beneath the flickering tube, leaving you in the steadier light. You do not mention that you noticed. You conserve textiles at the museum. This month your hands belong to a 200-year-old wedding coat with a split beneath one sleeve. Can you make it look new? Adrian asks. That would destroy it, you say. He glances over. By repairing it, by pretending it was never damaged. You tell him. The elevator reaches the lobby before he can answer. The next morning, he is waiting with a question. So how do you decide what to fix? He asks. You look at him. You've thought about the coat? Occupational hazard, he says. Old things and bad decisions about presentation. You explain that your job is not to erase age. It is to help the fabric carry its history without being destroyed by it. The doors open at the lobby again. This time, you stop them with your hand and offer him the small museum card you have been carrying for 3 days. We unveil it Thursday, you say, if you want to see whether I got it right. He turns the card once, reading the date, then looks back at you. Do you mean that? He asks. You keep one finger against the door open buttoned. Yes, you say. On Monday afternoon, 3 days before the gallery opens, the exhibition curator stands beside the wedding coat with her arms folded. The repaired split is nearly invisible from a distance. Up close, under the sleeve, a line of fine couching stitches follows the old damage without pretending it never happened. The lender asks whether we could tone the new stitches more closely to the original silk, she says. Your contract still contains the word probationary. The safer answer is yes. I can make it harder to see, you say. But, the curator asks. But then the treatment becomes a disguise, you say. The curator looks from the sleeve to you. The lender likes seamless. The coat isn't seamless, you say. For one long second, the museum feels as quiet as the elevator between floors. Then she releases a breath. It is your treatment. Be prepared to explain it. I am, you say. Your hands shake only after she walks away. You place them flat against the work table until they stop. That Thursday evening, you stand beside the wedding coat while strangers gather beneath the museum's low, cold white lights. You tell yourself you did not invite Adrian as a date. You invited a neighbor to see a thing you had discussed. Nothing more. Then he appears at the back of the gallery, still wearing his work coat. Without the elevator walls around him, he seems taller. His attention moves first to the restored sleeve and then to you. When it reaches you, it stays long enough to make nothing more difficult to believe. Afterward, he waits until the last question has been asked. You left the repair visible, he says. I was encouraged not to, you say. And? He asks. I told him the coat wasn't seamless, you say. His half-smile appears. I knew where to look. He nods toward the ceiling. The lighting is still unforgivable. You laugh loudly enough to startle the curator who had questioned you 3 days earlier. Adrian's phone vibrates in his pocket. He glances at the screen, and for the first time since you met him, his composure slips. Work? You ask. An old hotel with expensive opinions, Adrian says. He silences the phone and looks at you again. 7:38, he asks. Unless the elevator files a complaint, you say. Then I will see you there, he replies. On Friday morning, the elevator is empty. It is empty again on Monday, then Tuesday. At first you blame the hotel. By Wednesday you wonder whether the gallery took something private and 9 floors long and made it too visible. By Thursday, you have encountered a man eating yogurt from a paper cup, 2 wet dogs, and a woman conducting a breakup over speakerphone. None of them asks about the coat. None of them makes 9 floors disappear. You begin leaving at 7:32. At the museum, visitors lean close to find the repair. The curator adds your explanation to the public tour notes. You learn which staff entrance sticks in damp weather and where to stand when the gallery feels too crowded. You find a grocery store that carries the milk you recognize. The houseplant chooses a window and produces one stubborn new leaf. Then on Friday evening, you are sorting through your mail in the lobby when the revolving door pushes in a gust of cold air. Adrian walks in with a suitcase at his side. His coat is creased from travel, his dark hair no longer entirely orderly, and a day's stubble has roughened the clean line of his jaw. When he sees you, something in his tired face settles. There you are, he says. Was I missing? You ask. Every morning at 7:38, Adrian says. Work? You ask, nodding toward the suitcase. A hotel renovation, he says. 8 days of people arguing about how warm a light bulb should feel. And, you ask. They chose the first option, he says. You smile. Of course they did. Then you look at the suitcase again. You could have said goodbye, you say. His hand still's on the handle. The hotel called at 3:12 Friday morning, he says. My flight left at 6:15. He looks toward the elevator, then back at you. I stood outside 9:12 with my suitcase for nearly a minute, he continues. Knocking before dawn felt honest for the first 10 seconds and insane for the next 50. You could have left a note, you say. Yes, he says. Or asked for my number before you needed it, you add. The apology reaches his face before the words do. Also yes, he says. I am far enough from the people who would notice when I disappear, you say. I noticed when you did. I was trying not to presume that the museum invitation made this, he gestures between you and the brass walls, larger than it was. So you made it nothing instead, you say. He winces once. It turns out caution can be its own kind of presumption. Then, without dressing it up, he says, I am sorry. An elevator arrives behind you with a patient chime. Neither of you moves toward it yet. I brought a peace offering, Adrian says. It may be terrible. Your eyebrows rise. From his coat pocket, he takes a small paper packet from a coffee shop in another city. The owner said this roast tastes like the coffee where you're from, Adrian tells you. You never told him the name of your favorite roast. But you did describe it once, somewhere between floors 4 and 7. The elevator doors begin to close. Adrian catches them with one hand, and you step inside together. As always, he presses 9 for you. You press 17 for him. The elevator begins to rise. You accept the packet. You remembered, you say. I remember most things you say, he replies. The floor display changes from 2 to 3 while you search for something equally casual to say. Nothing comes. Adrian sets the suitcase between his shoes and watches the numbers climb. You look down at the packet, then back at him. I missed our elevator, you say. The car slows at 9, and the doors open onto your hallway. His half-smile returns, softer this time. The elevator specifically, he asks. You could retreat into the joke. For the last 2 months, humor has been the safe floor between honesty and silence. Instead of stepping out, you let the doors close again. No, you say. The elevator continues upward. The floor display passes 10, then 11, then 12. Adrian keeps his attention on the numbers. I missed it too, he says. The part between 9 and the lobby. That is a very small part of the building, you say. It became a fairly important part of my day, he replies. The doors open on 17. Neither of you moves. The doors start to close, Adrian taps door open, and they slide apart again. Adrian rolls his suitcase across the threshold onto 17, but leaves one hand on the button. There's a lounge on 18, he says. It has terrible chairs and a good view. I could make that coffee. He pauses. Or I can take this home, and Monday we go back to 9 floors at a time. Your old life is still waiting inside your phone, messages arriving 6 hours too early, photographs of people gathered around tables where you once knew every chair. For weeks you have handled every new pleasure carefully, as though enjoying it might erase something behind you. The new leaf on your windowsill is turning toward a sun it did not grow up beneath. You reach past his hand. And press 18. Adrian pulls his suitcase back into the car. The doors close on his slowly widening smile. 1 cup, you say. 1 cup, Adrian agrees. And I reserve the right to criticize it, you add. I would be disappointed if you didn't, he says. The lounge is exactly as promised. Terrible chairs, broad windows, and a city spread beneath you in amber squares. Adrian leaves his coat over one of the terrible chairs and rolls his sleeves once before making the coffee in a small silver machine. Without the coat, he looks less formal. No less put together. From this height, the streets that confuse you seem almost orderly. He brings you a cup and leans against the other side of the window frame. The space between you is wider than the elevator, and feels somehow more deliberate. The coffee is not the same as home. It is close enough to hurt for 1 second. Then the warmth reaches your hands. Well, he asks. Acceptable, you say. Devastating praise, Adrian says. You talk until the city darkens fully, not in fragments this time. You tell him about your mother's kitchen table, scarred by a hot pan no one admits to setting down. You tell him about the street that smells of wet stone after rain. Then you tell him about the curator, the lender, and the moment your own hand shook after you refused to hide the repair. The wedding coat frightened you because it was the first object here whose survival depended on your judgment. Adrian turns the paper coffee packet over once between his fingers. You left the repair visible, he says. The sentence reaches the exact place that Brave would have missed. When Adrian first told you about the bare bulbs, he made them sound like a joke. Now he gives you the part he left out. He can make a hotel lobby feel warm from the pavement, but has never decided what anyone should feel when entering his own home. You told me about the bulbs, you say. I didn't understand why. It is becoming professionally embarrassing, he says. You decide what strangers notice first, you say. Why leave your own rooms undecided? He looks down into his cup. Light tells people what kind of welcome to expect, he says. And you haven't decided whether you expect anyone, you say. He releases a short breath. That was the theory, he admits. And now, you ask. His gaze meets yours. Without the elevator's motor beneath it, his voice sounds lower. Now I keep thinking I have only 9 floors to say something that might make you stay, he says. For a moment, neither of you drinks. Stay in the elevator, you ask. In the conversation, Adrian says. He sets his cup down. I know you did not cross an ocean to be folded into somebody else's plans. He looks at you without the half smile. I am not asking for that. I am asking whether I may take you to dinner somewhere with better chairs. You study the man from 17, the man who remembered your coffee and forgot his goodbye, who can make a building announce its welcome from the pavement but has spent years leaving his own rooms undecided. Dinner, you say. A breath leaves him. Dinner, he agrees. You set your cup beside his. You could let the answer be enough. Instead, you close some of the distance yourself. Adrian goes still. From this close, you can feel the warmth of him in the cool room and see the faint roughness of evening along his jaw. His attention drops briefly to your mouth, then returns to your eyes. May I? He asks. For the second time that night, you choose not to return to the floor you know. Yes, you say. Adrian lifts one hand slowly, leaving you every chance to change your mind. His palm settles warm against your cheek, his thumb resting along the line of your jaw. You tip your face up, and he lowers his head. The first touch of his mouth is careful. Less a claim than a question asked again. Warm, unhurried, and softer than the composed lines of him led you to expect. He draws back only far enough to search your face. Your fingers close in the front of his shirt and pull him to you. The restraint changes. His free hand finds your waist. His fingers spread at your side, steady and sure, as he closes the distance you offered. The solid warmth of his chest meets your palms, and beneath them, his breathing loses its even rhythm. His mouth returns to yours with an intensity that sends heat low through you. He does not hurry you. He simply makes it impossible to mistake how long he has wanted this. 10 weeks of opening doors, remembered details, empty mornings, wrong coffee, and unfinished sentences gather into one unhurried moment. When you finally need air, Adrian follows only far enough to rest his forehead against yours. His thumb moves once along your jaw, his other hand remains warm at your waist, as though neither of you has decided that distance is necessary again. For the first time since you met him, his composure is nowhere to be found. His breathing is uneven. His mouth is still close to yours. That was better than the elevator, Adrian says. You had an entire extra floor, you say. An unfair advantage, he agrees. You used it acceptably, you tell him. His laugh is still against your mouth when you kiss him again. Outside the window, the unfamiliar city continues glowing, no longer quite so distant, no longer entirely someone else's. On Monday morning at 7:38, the elevator doors open on 9. Adrian is already inside, writing down from 17. He holds 2 cups of coffee. One is the city's version. One is an attempt at yours. Lobby? He asks. You step beside him and take the cup he always drinks. One sip confirms that it is still too bitter. It no longer tastes entirely unfamiliar. You return it and accept the other cup. Eventually, you say. The lobby button is already glowing, the doors close, and the elevator begins its familiar descent. At the sixth floor, the back of Adrian's hand brushes yours and remains there. You turn your palm upward and lace your fingers through his. For weeks, the lobby chime has meant the conversation is over. This morning, when the doors open, Adrian steps out beside you and keeps holding your hand. There is dinner to arrange. Adrian has your phone number now, and you have his. Your phone holds a message from your mother. Your museum badge is inside your coat. The new leaf at the apartment window will be leaning toward the morning light. None of it cancels anything else. For the first time, your 9th floor conversation continues beyond the elevator.